Hi there, it's me again, Dr. Robert Cywes, the Carb Addiction Doc, back with a follow-up episode. The last episode, if you're watching these podcasts in series, was about the Eskimos and why they are an incredibly successful hunter-gatherer society. Well, part of what we talked about is that successful groups, successful clans, successful people build up a wonderful, resilient emotional buoyancy. And it's that resilience and that emotional buoyancy that helps them to deal with the emotional fallout, the stress, the tension, the anger, the depression, the frustration of daily life, so that they can focus on and fix the issues in their lives, the issues that pertain to them. And there are a few fundamental emotion management strategies that has helped us to survive as a species and are very, very powerful releases of the endorphin system. I want to go through those 4 or 5 briefly mentioning them, and then I want to focus on one, which is human connection. So the first group are the creative arts. And that can be anywhere from gardening to fashion to music to storytelling to reading to writing to poetry to photography. There's a whole range. And everybody has something that they love to do, as long as they don't contaminate their passion and their love of what they do with excellence. I love to garden. I'm not very good at it, but I love to be out there doing it. I'll sing from time to time, even though when I sing in the shower, it's so bad that the shower switches itself off. I enjoy doing it. Cooking, for me, is an incredibly relaxing, wonderful thing. It's not really cooking, it's chopping food up and heating it up. And sometimes it looks great, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't matter. I have fun doing it, and then I have fun eating it. And I'm proud of doing it. It's the pride that you have in the effort that makes you feel good. Excuse me. The second category is physical activity. And it's very interesting to look at a brief history of physical activity. Way back, maybe 80, 100 years ago, physical activity was part of what we did as being human. Very, very few people exercised. In fact, until fairly recently, human beings didn't really exercise because physical activity is what we did on a daily basis to be alive. It was the things we got to do. So when we started realizing that carbohydrates, and in particular sugar, was an enemy when it was consumed excessively, particularly manufactured sugar. And we isolated one particular category of incredibly addictive, incredibly powerful sugar, which is the sugar that we drink, soft drinks, juices. And we still haven't quite reconciled juices, because they'll still tell us, oh, juices are healthy. Remember the turd? When you dress up a turd, you make a turd healthy? No, you don't. Orange juice has got more sugar in it than a can of Coke. But let me refocus. So we blamed the carbonated beverage industry for our obesity and for some of the diseases related to sugar. How did they respond? They were very smart. They were very, very smart. Coca-Cola did this. They said, you know what? It's not the sugar in Coke that makes you fat. Look, it's just calories. You guys are just fat and lazy. You're not exercising to burn off the calories. It's fine to drink, eat them. We need them for our brain. Some magical new thing that we need sugar for our brain. Your brain doesn't need sugar. It's fine on running on ketones and fat. But having said that, they said, oh, you have to consume sugar. Coke is a great way to drink sugar. And now Gatorade belongs to Coke. But it's because you're fat and lazy. You're fat and lazy. You don't burn off the sugar. You can put it in. You got to burn it off. It's like, smoke 3 cigarettes and go for a run, you'll be just fine because you blow out the nicotine. Well, everybody knows that's ludicrous. But Coke told us that it wasn't their sugar in their product that was the problem. We were fat and lazy. And what did they do? They put their money where their mouth was. They've invested billions of dollars on what's called Move More, the Move More campaign. And they've invested in all kinds of sports, exercise, gyms, exercise, burn off the sugar, burn off the sugar, burn off the sugar. Bullshit. It doesn't work that way. Sugar is injurious, destroys the body at ingestion. When it goes in your mouth, when it goes in your bloodstream, that's where the damage is caused. Exactly the same as nicotine in your lungs. No amount of exercise can burn off the sugar damage. You cannot outrun a bad diet. But Coca-Cola would love to make us believe that we move less and we get fat. We move more, we're healthy. And the whole principle of the CECO diet, calories in, calories out, eat less, do more, is in large part promulgated by folks like Coca-Cola. Sure, there's value to physical activity, and physical activity is one of the cornerstones of healthy emotion management. But physical activity is about pride and the endorphin activation of little bits of physical activity. It doesn't have to be exercise. In fact, it shouldn't for fat people. Why? Because when I was 300 pounds, been there, done that, and I had to move more because I'm fat because I don't move, and I get on the treadmill and I burn 1,000 calories huffing and puffing my way through this misery of the treadmill. But the machine says I burnt 1,000 calories, even though I feel like crap, because fat people shouldn't exercise. So now the machine said I burnt 1,000 calories. Well, hell, this ice cream's only 50 calories or 90 calories, and it's going to make me feel great. And I'm still down 900 calories. That's the Coca-Cola model. Well, how well did that work for me? I just became fatter and sicker. So fat people, and Time magazine reported on this a little while ago, plenty of evidence that fat people who exercise to lose weight will end up gaining more weight than they ever tried to lose because of that alternate validation to consume their drugs. And it's a calorie problem. No, physical activity is wonderful. I do it all the time. I have a dog right here. You've probably heard him through the podcast. He's my baby. He and I go for a walk twice a day, every day. It's not strenuous, it's not long, it's not far. It's as long and far and strenuous as I want to make it each day, as my brain needs. So yes, I move more. I park my car a little further away. I make my bed. I do the stairs. But those aren't for burning off calories. Those aren't for exercise. They're for the endorphin value. They're for the endorphin value. They make me feel good. Do I run from time to time? Do I exercise? Sure, because I love to do it now that I'm 90 pounds lighter. But don't ask a 300-pound guy to go for a run. It sucks. It's miserable. I know. But move. Move for the pleasure. Move for the pride. Move for the endorphin rush. The next category is spirituality. And spirituality is broad. Spirituality is about the meditative experience. It might just be pure meditation. It might be yoga. It might be a connection with a higher power. Spirituality isn't necessarily about God or a church. Spirituality is where you can share tough emotional issues in a quiet space and vomit them out and process through them without anybody else knowing. I call it my radar. I'll get in my car, switch off my radio, switch off my cell phone, and while I'm driving, I vomit stuff out into the atmosphere. It's called radar. Why? It's just noise. I'm not sure about what's going on. I don't have clarity. So I throw out all this noise, and what comes back at me is clarity. I can see the picture. It's like throwing a box of puzzle pieces out, and what comes back is a formed puzzle. It's so incredible how spirituality, how that meditative event gives your brain clarity, but also it relaxes us. It's an emotional, meditative experience. It relaxes us and allows us to solve or to process or to let go of the very issues that are causing the harm, causing the emotions. The fourth one is human connection. So sure, if I'm spiritual and I go to church, church is not about the spirituality necessarily, it's about the human connection. My prayer is about my spirituality. But yeah, at church, I'll connect with human beings. And human connection requires empathy. Empathy and trust. Why? Because it needs to be free of judgment and criticism. You can get feedback, and feedback may hurt a little bit. It may feel like criticism, but it's coming from an empathetic person. It's coming from somebody who's looking at you as to what you need, not what their needs are. Criticism is about my needs when I'm criticizing you. And it's usually demeaning and intended to be hurtful. Feedback may hurt, but feedback comes from an empathetic person who really cares more about you than they care about themselves. That's the difference. And most of us only, if we're lucky, have 3 or 4 people that are truly empathetic in our lives. My wife's one of those. I can take the shame and the stuff that festers inside of me, because shame festers in the dark. And when I'm with her, I can share that. And that shame, it just withers away when it sees the sunlight. And it doesn't seem so bad. But I've got to have that empathetic relationship. And everybody, I'm not unique, I'm very lucky, but I'm not unique. Anybody who has a sense of self-worth can develop an empathetic relationship with somebody else. But you've got to be humble about it. And you've got to accept that sometimes it will seem like criticism, but it isn't. It's feedback. It hurts, but it's for your benefit. So an empathetic environment is a critical environment, but you only do that when you have a good feeling about yourself. When you put effort into something and you have pride in that effort, are you able to connect with somebody else? When you learn to love yourself and you learn to accept your own mortality, when you learn to accept your own mediocrity, that you're okay. The opposite of too little is not too much. It's enough, and I'm good enough. When you're good enough and you're doing the best you can, then there's room in your life for somebody else. If you don't believe you're doing the best you can, if you don't believe you're good enough, there's no room in your life for somebody else, and you lose out on human connection. And then the other part of that, the fifth element, is sexuality. Sexuality is procreation of the species, and it can be a very valuable endorphin releaser. It can also be a harmful one. So it goes both ways. So be careful with that, but be honorable about your sexuality, and you're going to be fine. But let's talk a little bit more about human connection. And I said we were going to play a little game. Let's do a little bit of role playing. Okay, put yourself in this scenario. Nobody knows who you are. You're a stranger. Nobody can identify who you are. You don't have clothes that look like scrubs or anything like that. And you walk into a room with anywhere from 1 to 4 strangers in it. You don't know who they are. You can't identify who they are. You walk in and the objective is to connect with them. I've identified 3 different types of people that walk into that room. The first group of people are so insecure, they're so anxious, they're so afraid of everything, they cannot connect. They're the mushies. They're fearful of their own shadow. They can't connect, and they walk in and they slide in and they just stand there. And you've got to go in and hold their hand and say, "Hi, this is my friend." And you introduce them because they're not capable of creating a human connection. Okay? That's a group of people you'll see them. And if you're empathetic and if you're kind and if you're clannish, you will support those people. You'll bring them in and give them the confidence to connect. That's an opportunity. But what do? We look down, oh, look at them. We look down on, no. Support them. Bring them in. The second group of people, the second person walks into the room. And this is kind of how I started out, and I'm trying to move myself to the third category. The second category is very confident. But remember, every addict at the core has an eroded or a weak or a poor, underdeveloped sense of self. Our self-esteem and our self-confidence is in the toilet. Even though your facade, what you project to the world, may be one of confidence, on the inside you're inadequate by your own perception. So you walk into that room and you're very confident, hi, I am. And you introduce yourself and, what are you guys doing here? It's a wonderful day today. But the context of that connection is yourself. You connect in a very confident way, but it's all about I, it's all about me, and your entire context is yourself, because that's your comfort zone. You're not seeing those other people as people. In fact, you're a little bit afraid of them. You're afraid that they're going to see your pathetic self-esteem and self-confidence. So you have this facade, but you don't create a good human connection because there's no empathy. And you may be confident, you may walk in there arrogant, they may even call you narcissistic, but you don't form a connection. You don't form a human connection, and you're isolated on your own little island. The third group, and I call the third group the door openers. And this is what I'm striving to be, attempting to be. But some people just have it. And I'm so lucky that my wife is this person. They'll walk into a room of strangers. They'll smile, they'll go up to somebody and say, hey, my name is, oh my goodness, those are beautiful earrings. Where did you get them from? Well, I love your hair. Who does your hair? And it's not artificial and smarmy and, those flamboyant people that flash in and flash out. Because on the back end of asking that question, they truly are intrigued and interested in your response. But what they've done is they've looked at something and they've identified something about you that they know is a core strength of you. You did that for a positive purpose, and they put a positive twist on it. They build up your confidence. They create instant trust. And because they're focusing on you, not themselves, they're not talking about I, they're talking about you. They fill you with that confidence and that trust, and you start talking about something you're proud of. Oh yeah, I bought these earrings, and they were given to me on my 21st birthday, and my mom gave them to me, and she's since passed. And you listen to the story, and you validate the story. You formed an instant trust. You formed a friend. You formed a bond. Those are the door openers. And you can practice that because the emotional value, the pride, the pleasure, the enjoyment of humble human connection is enormous. That second person is confident, but they're not humble. The third person is confident, but super humble. And they allow you and they validate you to be an identified human being. And nobody loves anything more than being recognized as counting, as being of value, as being somebody that actually exists. The first person doesn't exist. The second person exclusively exists, you don't. The third person, we both exist, we're both equals. And man, that's a great human connection. And I've learned so much from my wife in that regard, because then you're able to bring the best out of people. And then when you look at somebody else, you're able to answer the Brené Brown question, which is this. And it's a yes, no. Do you believe that the people around you are doing the best they can? Do you believe every day you're doing the best you can? And most addicts will be a no, no. And the correct answer is yes, yes. More about that next time. Be human, connect in a confident, humble way. And you will have an empathetic human connection that then will become your single greatest resource of emotion management. You can overcome, you can develop emotional buoyancy, emotional resilience out of that relationship. But the more you look in your toolkit and the more you have all 4 or 5 of those, something creative, something physically active, something spiritual, meditative, something in an empathetic human connection, and maybe some sexuality, who the hell then needs carbohydrates? That's freedom from drug addiction. Because emotional buoyancy comes from the effort you put in. The ROI of effort that you generate from within builds your self-esteem and your self-confidence, and then don't need some external thing to make you feel good. That's what this program is all about. Reach out to me if you want to know more, if you want to learn more about yourself, or if you want to conquer your addiction.